Okay, so back with another video, guys. What's up? I'm gonna do a one take on this because it's been a long time since I finished writing, since I published the article that I'm gonna talk about today. So I want this video to go out pretty fast. So minimal editing for that reason, and maybe because I'm lazy as well. And yeah, let's dig into it. So the article that I'm going to be talking about that I wrote is called Calories, Insulin, and a Bit on Fasting. So it's split into three sections, as the title indicates, and it's based on Dr. Jason Fung's interview in the High Intensity Health podcast by Mike Mutzel, I think. I hope I got his name right. Okay, so what did I talk about? What did I want to talk about? What did I want to talk? Oh my god, this is early. Okay. First thing, we're gonna talk about calories and the cool things I found from the podcast. The main thing was a question actually. What is the key problem with the concept of calorie in, calorie out? And my approach to answering this question is by asking three more questions. The first one being, what exactly is the calorie in, calorie out concept? So, from the podcast, Dr. Fung basically explains that it's a concept based loosely on thermodynamics from physics, which is the idea that it's an idea surrounding balance. If you have X amount of input energy, you will release X amount of energy. So energy in and energy out will always be the same. That's the basic idea. I hope I didn't mess it up too bad. So applied to the field of nutrition, the thinking is that if you eat a certain amount of calorie, right? No, I mean if you expend a certain amount of calorie, you will use up those calories like immediately. So for example, to make it clear, if you were to maybe like a very simplified and perhaps oversimplified understanding of this calorie in, calorie out concept that unfortunately many people do believe to some degree, is that, oh, if I eat a piece of cookie that's 200 calories and then I go bike, I don't know, on like biking machine for and expend 200 calories, then I must have burned all those calories. So that's the idea of the calorie in, calorie out concept. I'll talk about the problems with that later. It's actually not my knowledge, it's the knowledge from the podcast, by the way, so don't think too highly of me. Okay, so that's the first question to answering the main question, right? The first question was, what is the concept exactly? The second question is, what popularized this concept? And I find this question particularly interesting because I think 3 years ago, I was an avid advocate of the calorie in, calorie out concept. I was using MyFitnessPal like it was the Holy Bible, even though I'm not Christian. I swore by it. And I think that is probably one of the reasons why the calorie in, calorie out concept became famous. I mean, this is not to disregard or like defame or like talk bad about MyFitnessPal. I think it's an excellent app and a great way for people to start monitoring their diet. But my point is that it contributed to the belief in the calorie in, calorie out concept. And alongside that, we also have this trend which began, I don't know when it began, definitely in the 21st century, which is the if it fits your macros diet, IIFYM, where the basic idea is that the food content does not matter that much. Like, well, let's be clear. There are varieties of like IIFYM diets, meaning that like there are people who do it certain ways and other people who do it other ways. So the more radical types may go as far as to say that the food you eat don't matter as long as it fits within your macronutrient profile that you set for yourself, right? So if you want to hit 60 grams of protein, doesn't matter what kind of protein you eat. Meat, tofu, beans, I don't know, whatever you want, as long as you hit it and don't go over it. Yeah. So those things popularized it. And then also like both of these, like the whole MyFitnessPal and IFYM, we have to also acknowledge the fact that we are in the age of information, and most of the information on these things are like very, very densely packed on social media, not least on YouTube. But I'm not going to name any YouTube channels because I don't want to get in trouble. Okay. The third question, why am I writing about this? So I kind of touched on this briefly. I'm just going to answer it again in my own words and not read from my own essay like the last video because it's boring for you. So yeah, I swore by the IFYM thing, and the thing was that I actually got quite lean. Like not like what Charles Poliquin would call dick skin lean, or like what's his name? Jason He, the guy from Animal, like the really cool buff Korean American guy. Yeah. So I didn't have that much leanness, but I looked okay. But the caveat was I didn't really sleep well. I responded to stress very poorly. My brain was kind of foggy all the time, and I got shitty grades. And I'm not blaming this entirely on the IIFYM and my diet. Of course, there are other confounding factors, but I think it played a big role because after I changed and played with my diet, became more open-minded, less dogmatic, and experimented with things, I found it my quality of life to be better. So the bottom line to answer the third question, why am I writing about this? The bottom line is that I want to continually learn and challenge my current base of knowledge, and I think it's something very useful. Okay, so we answered 3 questions, right? What is the calorie in, calorie out concept? What popularized this concept? Why am I writing about this? All of this in attempt to answer the biggest question. What is the key problem with the concept of calorie in, calorie out? Which we will answer right now. So, in the the podcast, the basic answer is that the main problem is that with the calorie in, calorie out concept is that I'm saying is that a lot. I'm sorry, it's very annoying. Oh my god. So the main problem is that our bodies do not have receptors for calories. That's the main problem. We don't recognize it. Another problem under that is that we need to acknowledge the hormonal responses that different food produce. So let's think about the first part. So our bodies don't have receptors for calories. I actually don't know how to expand on that, apart from like regurgitating what Dr. Fung said, which is that we don't know how to measure it in the human body, but we know how to measure it outside the human body. So if you wanted to know the caloric content of an almond, you would burn it and measure how much energy it expends, right? And use a fancy equation. We all probably did that at some point in our high school. But our bodies don't have a receptor for that. You probably got to check up on that. I didn't really check up on that because I didn't find that... I found it interesting to some degree, but I don't know if I would be interested in exploring it further. Maybe some of you can actually tell me more about it. But the thing that was really cool about me was the hormonal responses to different types of food. So, one of the things I linked, like, that popped up into my mind while writing the article was Dr. Rhonda Patrick's discussion on zero calorie products on one of Joe Rogan's podcasts. And she mentioned how even though it's technically 0 calories, the sugar replacement like aspartame and other substances wrecks your gut biome. I might be exaggerating, but basically that's the point. Everything comes with a cost, and you should be very, very thorough about what you put in your mouth. So that's one of the example of the hormonal response, not hormonal response, I guess, but one of the side effects of food that the calorie in, calorie out concept ignores. Another thing is, oh yes, we're gonna get into my favorite hormones now, leptin and ghrelin. Ghrelin is spelled Ghrelin. I spelled it wrong for a couple of times, so I'm saying that now. So I have a very basic understanding of the hormones, despite listening to many smart people talk about them. This is a sentence taken out of my Medium article because I truly stand by it. Leptin is a hormone known to be mainly responsible for feeling full, right? More leptin, you feel more full. Ghrelin is the opposite. It's the hunger hormone, makes you feel hungry. Leptin. Oh, a cool fact about ghrelin is that it spikes 3 times during a 24-hour window, and the spike is not exponential, and is in fact followed by a rapid decline. So when you're hungry, just stop. Just don't, complain too much about it. It'll drop. Yeah, and I also mentioned that Dr. Matthew Walker said that these 2 hormones sounds like goblins, so that's a useful way of remembering it. All right, so what about these hunger and feeling full hormones, like these 2, leptin and ghrelin? So it's really cool. Like if you think about it, if you feel full, right, you're probably gonna function better, and you're probably not gonna eat any you're not gonna make poor dietary choices in between your meals, i.e. mainly not snack on stuff. So, okay. The final example to show how this, I'm losing my train of thought a bit, but okay. So, leptin and ghrelin. Okay. So, both hormones, leptin and ghrelin, basically controls how full you are. And the best example to show you this, to use these 2 hormones to disprove the calorie in, calorie out concept, or not disprove, but problematize the calorie in, calorie out concept is the satiety effect you get from eating 500 calories of steak versus 500 calories of jelly beans. You would feel more full in the former compared to the latter. And then we go on to talk about a next cool hormone, right? Which forms the second part of my essay, insulin. All right, so this discussion is just gonna be based on what I learned from the podcast. It won't be a comprehensive discussion on insulin per se. So, first cool thing, insulin triggers the release of leptin, which tells your brain there's too much fat and therefore makes you feel full. Now that's cool. If you stimulate the production of insulin all the time, by eating all the time, that's one way of doing it, you could develop 2 nasty conditions. One is it's called leptin resistance, which means the body is less able to tell itself that it's full. And this can happen in 2 ways. You might have a decrease in the number of leptin in your body, but the worst thing, right, the second way that you might develop leptin resistance is that you develop leptin, you reduce the leptin responsiveness despite having the same number of leptin in your body. The second nasty condition is insulin resistance. The second nasty condition that could come from stimulating insulin all the time is, quite obviously, insulin resistance. And yeah, there's so much to say about insulin resistance. But I think I'll focus on one thing right now, which is that the because the one thing I'm going to focus on is the relationship between leptin resistance and insulin resistance. Those two are highly linked. So if you develop insulin resistance, you're going to very likely develop if you develop insulin resistance, you're going to likely develop insulin resistance. Yep. No. If you develop insulin resistance, you're going to very likely develop leptin resistance. I'm pretty sure if you read the article, it would make a bit more sense. Sorry about this, guys. The second reason why it sucks, okay. Oh, this is one cool. Insulin, right? So the second cool thing I learned about insulin from the podcast, I learned it from elsewhere too, but it was reinforced in the podcast, was it plays a crucial role in nutrition partitioning, i.e. how we use and allocate the food we eat, which has a direct impact on our body composition. Right, so I ended this this section on insulin by saying that fasting is a very excellent way of managing insulin and increasing insulin sensitivity, or just it's like efficiency and power, basically. Well, insulin efficiency, I guess. I guess you could just call it insulin sensitivity. Anyhow, let's go on to the last section, the bit on fasting, okay? Ooh, 16 minutes, right? All right, I'll keep this short. So, it's called a bit on fasting because it's only 2 points. And I will definitely make a series of videos on fasting because I find it so interesting. 1, like I said, it helps increase insulin sensitivity. How does it do it? By fasting, you don't eat as often, obviously, so it reduces the number of insulin spikes, and therefore enhances leptin production and responsiveness and nutrition partitioning. That's pretty cool, right? Smaller levels of insulin also kickstart a process called lipolysis or fat burning. This may be the main reason why fasting or time-restricted eating may be superior than diets that are based on caloric manipulation prescribed by fitness trainers, because it accounts for yep, that might be the reason why. Other reasons why could include the fact that intermittent fasting and time-restricted feeding takes into account a range of hormonal changes that aids fat burning and general well-being. That like other hormonal changes that are important for fat burning, muscle gain, skeletal development, nervous system function, and other things like immune system, right? You got to take that into account too, because if you're sick, you can't train, you can't make progress, right? Can't work. Sucks. So to end this point, fasting and consumption of carbohydrates, managing the consumption of carbohydrates are two of the many things that could help with the body's production and management of insulin. Second reason, which is it's tied to fasting, but it's just a simple question: why we snack. And I think I'll just go based on my script here. So we snack for several reasons. And I think the 2 hormones that I mentioned, leptin and ghrelin, are one of the key reasons why. Another cool reason is more philosophical than scientific, which is that you're just bored when you eat. And I think many practitioners actually share this idea that food comfort and food addiction is actually a real thing, and that the reason you're snacking or eating may not be because you're hungry, but because you're not engaging in exciting activities, or you may have underlying problems with your life, so sort that out first and it might help with your snacking. But I don't know if I don't know, like the idea about having underlying problems with your life and snacking, I'm not too confident about that, because that's gonna require an extensive and rather dark conversation. What I think I align my, what I agree more with is the idea of boredom. Like, you were bored, so you eat. And one way to fix that is to engage in exciting activities, right? So do fun and exciting things between your meals. That is it. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.